Pass the 40 pass the 40 cuz my mother's not looking.
What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Past the 40. I have Dawn Yager here with me.
Happy to be here.
Great to have you. Where are you calling us from today?
I am in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where I've been for 20 years. I meant to be here two-ish.
And you never left?
I never left.
Where were you coming from before that?
Kind of the outskirts of Detroit.
Very nice.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about your 40 questions today?
I'm excited. I feel a little bit of pressure, but I think they're about me, so I should know.
No pressure whatsoever. It's just two old friends talking.
Perfect.
With tens of millions of people listening and watching, obviously.
Perfect. Great.
That's it. No big deal. All right, I'm ready to go if you are.
Let's do it.
So you wrote down two names on the intake form for this episode, Dawn Yager and Swami Ambikananda. You have to get that right. Is that? Oh, do you usually introduce yourself with two names?
I don't. I usually use them accordingly.
Okay.
You know, most of the time it's Dawn, and every now and then my title helps me to get in the door somewhere, and they're hiring me because of my qualifications. So, you know, that's helpful as well. But generally, you know, very low key.
Can you pronounce the second name and just tell me a little more about that, of why that is your title in certain situations?
So Swami Ambikananda, it's basically, I try to explain it to people, it's kind of like a doctorate of yoga philosophy. Like I have done it and done it and done it, and not just read it, but done it and experienced it and done it so much that the temple feels like, okay, you are able to carry on our teachings. We feel okay with you continuing in our name.
And who is the authority that grants you that title?
This is the Kriya Yoga lineage. So you might have heard, maybe not, there's a book called Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And it's an interesting book. It's a very important yogi book, but also Steve Jobs had all his employees read it. It was his most influential book. Well, that's my lineage.
Very nice. At what point in life did you know that yoga was going to be your thing?
Yeah, well, I didn't know what it was, but I kind of heard it from the inside up, which is cuckoo and bananas and totally weird, but I was there and it happened. And so it was before the days of, you know, Wi-Fi and cell phones, and used to, when you were in your house, if you weren't getting up to change the television like every 5 minutes to 2 and 4 and 6, sometimes you'd just be quiet. You know, and I was walking through the house and this word from the inside up said yoga, and there was no internet. So I went to the public library and there was 2 books on yoga, and they wouldn't let me have a library card. So I borrowed them and studied them over and over and over. And one of them was from this Swami in Chicago. And that's how I started to further my studies. But I eventually unborrowed the books. I took them back a couple of years later.
How old were you when this voice came to you?
Middle school.
Middle school,
yeah.
So you dove in pretty early and never looked back.
Yeah, well, you know, I didn't like the poses. I didn't like that. So that's usually what we think of when we think of yoga, is like the poses and sweating and handstands and that kind of thing. I really liked like dropping in, like the mysticism and higher levels of consciousness. And it was about that time I started partying a little bit. And there was like this parallel of higher states of consciousness and what I was starting to experience as a teenager.
Yeah.
And so I really liked that part of it. And it wasn't for many years later till I added the poses, actually.
Very cool. And you're now also a yoga consultant, is that correct?
Yeah, so this was something that just grew because I was the first really concrete yoga studio in this area. I ended up building teachers. Where do these teachers go? Eventually, they want to have their own space. I ended up consulting for other studios, even though they were competitors, because I really feel like if you do a business well and it's a trademark of your personality, everybody has room. Everybody has space. So I started consulting for even people I knew. And now I'm consulting for people across the country. This upcoming week, I'll be kind of outside Miami and in that area for a new studio that's opening. So that'll be exciting.
So people hire you to kind of get something off the ground the same way a restaurant would hire a consultant like that. All right.
Absolutely.
Very
It's
cool.
a good gig. Yeah.
That's very cool. If you could give a TED talk on any subject, what would it be?
I think it would really have to do with suffering because suffering is something everybody experiences. Nobody gets out of that lesson. And if we have that, it must be for a reason. So what do we do with that? So a lot of my teachings revolved around the idea that suffering is an opportunity to create growth, to create change.
Sure.
And if you pick it up right away, the suffering's small. If you ignore it and continue on, the suffering becomes great. So actually the practice of not pushing away suffering is a practice in itself.
And is that, do you teach that normally, like how to deal when suffering comes along? These are the steps that you do to deal with it.
Yeah, well, I think one of our difficulties is we're so comfortable all the time. You know, it's like, think of these people that it has to be 68.5 degrees, you know, or they're pissed, right? Nothing's okay. But I had this teacher, Andrei Lapo from the Ukraine, and he said to me, stop using your air conditioning for a summer. Stop taking your car one block away to get things. Do all these things. So I gave into the AC, and I'm in hot, humid Myrtle Beach. I looked a mess.
Yep.
For the entire summer. But I will tell you, I became a better person. I was more used to not having everything perfect all the time. And then I went to India and I became a way better person because as long as I could drink the water, as long as I could eat the food that was in front of me, I had a recliner I could kick back. You know, I need very little to be happy now.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of philosophies that preach that. Like Stoicism says to practice poverty for like a week every month, and just kind of, you know, you don't need that much. Or like the book Siddhartha, which is one of my favorite pieces of fiction. It's just like you really don't need much to live this life. What is something that you're very excited about right now?
You know, I'm really excited about kind of merging my background of business. I used to run businesses in retail before. I turned yogi. What happened was my students donated the money for me to open a studio, and I couldn't say no. I was working another job. It was such a gift, and it blew my mind that I had to do it. So most yoga studios fail, and that's a bummer. And that's because yogis aren't necessarily business people,
Sure.
And business people don't always open studios the right way. So I'm really excited about merging a traditional spiritual yoga studio that is actually a business and falls along those guidelines. It's like when people see a traditional studio, they don't want to pay, they think it's a discount. Like everybody thinks it's a charity except for the government. So we have to merge those two so we're financially supported.
How long have you had your current studio?
We've been open 11 and a half years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So are you now doing things differently in order to make it more business focused, or you've always been like that from the start?
I've always been like that. You know, it's what I've really learned is your past experiences are preparing you for your future worth. And so I did all this with surf and skatewear. I did all these things, but now instead of having to purchase product, I just speak. And my teachers just speak and give thoughts and ideas. So it's, you know, some of the biggest and best businesses right now don't have product. So Uber, Airbnb, Google, there's no product.
They're just the marketplace.
They're the market. They're the communicators. They're the connectors.
Sure.
So that's a way that everybody can really take care of themselves. If you're an expert at anything you love, you've spent 10,000 hours on it, that means you're an expert. That means people want to know about it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Hairless cats. How many do you have, and when did that become your animal pet of choice, and what are the names of your pets?
I have 2, and I hope to have more. I have to break my family in one at a time,
right.
You know, it's like pop them up slowly. I met these hairless cats when I was in Chicago. It was the first time I actually met a hairless cat. And from that moment on, I never not thought about those cats every single day. They are the most magnificent creatures. They don't always convey in photos until you meet one. And then when you see the photo again, you understand. They feel like a newborn baby. They're hot and soft and sweet. And yet they are the weirdest, most odd things ever. So it's like a living gargoyle that you just get to watch and enjoy. And they're very clean and just easy animals. So I was on the search. It took me 2 years to find the first one, Eleanor. It's my car's name and my cat's name, both named Eleanor. And the second one's Sweet Pea. And she's really, it's kind of funny that that's her name because she's like really bitchy. She's like the mean old lady. She's pissed off at all of life. And I just can't get enough of it.
My wife and I had a beagle named Sweet Pea as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was she sweet though?
Oh, the sweetest.
See, yeah, mine was not.
Yeah. What is a great piece of advice that has really stuck with you?
I think that one of the things that someone had told me is when you're building your career, your persona, whatever it is to just be really, really honest about it from the beginning. If you create something that you believe people will like, then you'll attract people that like that false persona. And eventually you'll get sick of that shit and you'll have to move on and you'll lose the demographic that you've already built. So even if it takes longer, stay really true to who you are because they're going to stick around for the right reasons.
Very true.
Yeah.
How many tattoos do you have?
I haven't counted, but I'm guessing over 10 because I'm thinking when you get around that number is when you stop counting.
What was your first?
My first one, I was in 10th grade. I went to this little hole in the wall. It was called Hole in the Wall. And
aptly named.
Yes. I went with my friend. She asked for our ID, and I was like, oh, it's in the car. Do you need me to go get it? And I was just going to leave. And she was like, it's fine. And I was like, oh, man, I'm doing this. So that was on my backside, and it was a little moon and stars, and I just picked it off the flash on the wall, which I would never, ever do now.
Right.
But I put it there because I thought, nobody would ever see it. And then I realized it was like a moon on the moon, and that was weird. I don't know.
Right.
Not the best choice, but whatever.
No big deal.
Yeah.
What are you afraid of?
I think the thing that scares me most is other people in pain. Seeing other people in discomfort and in pain. So I can not go on social media sometimes. Those things really, really, really affect me.
I was going to say, there's a lot. It's very easy for that to come across your daily life these days. So it's hard to stay away from. There's
so much. Luckily, the career I have, everybody's kind of in a place. They're usually coming from pain, but they're in a place of looking for positivity. They're working hard. They're moving forward. So that's really helpful. But that might also be why I'm so affected by it, because it's kind of out of my daily realm.
Right. You're dealing with people trying to get away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is a quirk of yours that few people know about?
I can be really, really silly, I think. And I don't think anybody would ever see me that way because I'm super punctual, and we call it registic in yoga. I make 1,000 lists and I get 1,000 things done, and forward moving and, all of those things. But I can also be really funny and really silly, but I can only do that when I have time. Those kind of things I think people don't know about me.
You should schedule time to be silly.
Yes,
it's always
that's
a necessary part of the balance.
Write that down.
Last year, you went to India for yoga training, and you said that you got everything you needed in minutes, but ended up staying for 5 weeks. So
Yeah.
what was it that you learned immediately, and how did you know that was it, and you didn't need more?
I took a long flight. I went to Amsterdam, and I stayed 24 hours and enjoyed the city. I thought I needed it was almost like one last hurrah before India, because I was going to this temple. No wine, nothing, lots of sincere study, which I love, but I'm a very balanced yogi. I also like happy hour and nice cars and bags and all those things.
Yeah.
And so I went and enjoyed myself in Amsterdam for the day, spent the night, and then I went to India the next day. And when I was getting on the plane, the entire side of the plane says, "Are you ready for a culture shock?" And I was like, shit, because I was not at all ready. But I got on the plane and I got there, and I will tell you, it's the strangest thing. But once I was on the land, I was a completely different person. And I don't think that I could mentally have words for it, but it was almost like there was lessons that were downloadable through your DNA. It was like my mind had to catch up with what was going on over the next 5 weeks. But in that moment, I was completely different. I had a lot of shit going on up until that point, and it just happened to be a good time to take that trip. And in that moment, I was completely free of all of them. And that is not like me. I'm a triple Cancer, which is like, if you believe in astrology, it is the one that hangs on triple strength. Like, it will never let go, triple crab, and my feet touched the earth and I was completely over it. It's not like it didn't bother me again in the future, but there was this cord cut. There was this mental disconnect. And the next 5 weeks, I kind of caught up with what all that meant. But I think if I would have got on the plane in that moment and went home, I still would have taken it with me.
So you were there for 5 weeks. You were already a Swami, a master. So like, what is the continued learning over such a long, intense span?
Well, a little bit was catching up of the kind of yogi legalities of it. So we have this thing called the Yoga Alliance, and it's basically a company that governs all yogis.
Is that right?
That used to not even be yogis, but now is yogis. So there was this yogi resistance to the alliance. And I was part of that resistance because I was like, I've been doing this since 93, and I was like, nobody's going to come in now and certify me,
Right.
And then what they did was they replaced the board with swamis and with people who have been around a long time, and they redid it. And then I had to ante up. I had to go put in my time because I was undocumented essentially.
How many people are now certified at that level?
Well, at the 500-hour level, that is tons.
Yeah.
That's like 2-month-long separate trainings. It is a lot of work, but a lot of people have that and don't teach. They did it for further study. So the seminary program was a 2 to 3 year program, and that was intensive. We stayed often at a nunnery, a silent nunnery, which was weird because I got kicked out of Catholic school. It's so strange.
How long did you have to be silent over that time frame?
Yeah, a week or 2 weeks at each retreat. I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how much, your own craziness comes from your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty awesome.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
If you could relive a single day from your past exactly as it happened the first time, what day would you choose to experience all over again?
This is interesting because I read this question a week ago and I had a different answer. And this week, it's funny because at this age, I think when suddenly at 40 for me, I just turned 40 a couple weeks ago. And suddenly there's people that are passing away, people that are gone just within this past year. And just 3 days ago, there was an accident with 2 of my friends. And, I think that what I would really do is spend time with people that I'm missing. I think it just suddenly hit me. I don't know why all at once. But I might have before relived a day that I thought was really great, like a wedding or a party or something amazing or an accomplishment. Mm-hmm. But just in the past 2 weeks, really, I would think that I would spend time with people that maybe my mind was somewhere else when I was with them, thinking about these goals, these dreams, these desires that never even get fulfilled, and they're stealing our attention from people we love.
Totally. Yeah. Be present with people because you never know.
Yeah.
For your last meal, what would you choose to eat?
Oh, I love food.
Great.
So
Me
much.
too.
It would be something Italian, just noodles, tomato sauce, cheese, bread, all the carbs possible.
Very basic Italian.
And dessert, just the whole carb sugar thing.
Italian dessert as well, or you would go to what type of dessert do you like?
I keep it all together. I do some kind of tiramisu, some sorbet, some kind of maybe all of it. I'm into that.
If you could have a drink with a fictional character, who would that be?
Let's see. I think I was a big fan of the Batman and Joker that came out in the early 90s or late 80s.
Who was Batman?
Who was Batman? It was Michael Keaton as the Joker.
Michael Keaton was Batman. Michael Keaton was Batman.
And Jack Nicholson
was the Joker.
That's what I would do. I think any Joker. But the Joker, it's just his brain. And, maybe he's not as crazy as I thought when he was a kid. When I was a kid, mm-hmm. I thought he was crazy, but maybe he has some points. I don't know.
What's a piece of advice you would give to your 20-year-old self?
I would say that not ever to worry that somebody is looking at you, because this is what happens. Everybody is only worrying about themselves. You know, when you're getting ready to walk into a packed room and you think everybody's looking at you, nobody's looking at you. Everybody's thinking, everybody's looking at me. That's what we're all thinking. So just walk in and have a good time. And I would run around naked more, or at least less clothes. You know what I mean? I remember looking at a picture of myself when I was 20, and I remember me feeling like I should cover up. And if I had that now, we would all be in trouble.
Because you thought people were looking.
Yeah, and I just didn't feel,
confident?
like it was good. And if I had that now,
Mm-hmm.
if I would have known better, I should have enjoyed myself. I should have not worried. All those things. And I'll probably say that when I'm 60, so I should probably take that advice now.
Now, yeah, for sure. It's amazing. A lot of people who were asked this question say the same thing, that like everyone was, I don't know why everyone was so worried when they were 20 years old.
Yes,
right?
I know. You're like perfect.
Right? Everything's just so, you still have no responsibility. Everything's great when you're 20.
Yeah, everything's where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
What is something that you've tried that you'll never try again?
Bungee jumping. Or anything of that sort. Never, ever, ever again. There was nothing good about it. The way up, the way down, in between.
You hated it.
Everything bad. I like TV and shopping and relaxing, and not that.
If you won the lottery tomorrow, what are 3 things you know for sure you would do with the money?
I often have thought of this. And I know that I would relieve people's pain. So I would probably spend the entire thing immediately, because pain is in the form of money all around us.
Well, how? How would you relieve people's pain with all the money?
Charities? No, I would start with very local around me, and that might take all of it. It depends on how much you're winning.
That's a lot of pain.
Yeah, I know. I would make sure, everybody's houses and cars were paid for and nobody was worried, or that's just the big thing. I don't like people to worry and to feel bad. It really stresses me out. So I would be the worst lotto winner, because it would just trickle down, and then that would be the end of it.
Maybe that's the best lotto winners. And you just you help people and then just move on with your life as it was.
Yeah, depends who you're asking.
Yeah. Who is your celebrity crush?
I like Jason Statham, and that's about it. I'm not a big I feel like I have to know somebody, I'm one of those people.
Yeah, I'm actually the same way.
But I imagine he's amazing.
Of course. How could he not be?
Right.
What is something that you gave up on and you wish you hadn't, or a regret that stands out?
I gave up on swimming. I was a swimmer. I was a really, really good swimmer. And I didn't even have any difficulties. It was more like the support, the time, the space. And I kind of wish I wouldn't have done that. But that's about it. But I think about it often. I think about it like every few months, maybe.
When did you stop?
I was probably like 15, 16, something like that. It was my sport of choice, though. And it was really natural, and I was really great at it. And it just, I don't know. I often wonder, what if I kept doing that? But now I'd be done regardless, so.
True. But it's still, swimming is a life skill. It's still like something that's just great to have in your back pocket. So when you get in the water now, you're still comfortable. You're just not bracing anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Mm.
If you could have personally witnessed an event in history, what would you want to have seen?
This is probably a common one, but Woodstock. I definitely wanted. Swami Satchidananda opened Woodstock. He's this amazing Swami. Woodstock started with an Om. They Om together.
Is that right?
That's amazing. There's some really cool footage of him on stage and everybody in the rolling hills like Oming. And he has this temple in Virginia, and this huge, huge building. It's the shape of a lotus flower. And there's these videos of him on this this big crane, like bulldozing, and it's amazing. And so I would like to see that moment, and Jimi Hendrix.
That is pretty awesome, actually. So other people have answered Woodstock. No one has mentioned the Om.
Oh, see?
That's a cool little fact to bust out at the next party when Woodstock comes up.
Yeah.
You recently posed a question on your Facebook page, or maybe it was posed to you on a TV segment, meditation versus mindfulness.
Hmm.
Which is for you? And so, which one is for you, and does it have to be one or the other?
Yeah, it doesn't have to necessarily be one or the other, but what I like the best, meditation is actually the state of immersing your consciousness from one point, from 2 points to 1 point. It's called ekagrata, meaning only thinking of one thing. And that's when you have oneness, not separation. The root word of disease is to decide and to separate. So anytime you have anything that separates, you have disharmony. So when you merge the consciousness to one thing, you feel peaceful, you feel sattvic. Meditation gets you there, but it's so hard. It takes many years, it takes consistent effort. You can't do it for 2 weeks, then quit, and then do it. And so most people just quit. So, backup plan, mindfulness. Mindfulness is when you pay attention to whatever you're doing. So right now I'm being mindful of the way I'm sitting. I'm being mindful of the way I'm reacting. Later I'm going to be mindful of the way my teenagers are speaking to me, and I'm going to be mindful of my reaction. Those kind of things. So it's a daily and lifelong practice. And if you get really good at mindfulness, you might slip into meditation easier. So one can help the other.
Do you have a meditation practice, or is that just part of your being and your yoga and just kind of fits in with everything else?
I have a practice that outlines my life, and it's long. I have a 90-minute practice in the morning. I have a 90-minute practice in the evening. And sometimes I have an afternoon practice.
And that's just by yourself? That's not even
Yeah.
your teaching?
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
I know.
That's a lot
I
of
know.
dedication there.
It's crazy. It doesn't barely make any sense, but you do it because it has to be done. That's what my teacher says.
All right, nothing wrong with that. It doesn't need to make sense to anyone else as long as it makes sense to you.
That's right.
What's a skill that you want to acquire in the next 40 years?
I want to expand my knowledge of musical instruments. I'd like to get good at playing a string instrument.
Do you play
Now-
any instruments now?
Yeah, I mean, I can play the drums. I did that for a long time. It's been a while. I play piano, so I play the harmonium, which is this, like, if you like music, this is a cool instrument. It has 18 or 32 keys, and it has a bellows that you pump like an organ. And it has wood reeds, and the sound is like a drone. It's really beautiful.
What's it called?
It's called a harmonium. They're originally from Europe. Now they're mostly used in India, but some underground churches in the South use them because it was like a portable organ.
Wow, very cool. I have not heard of that.
Mm-hmm. Very cool instrument, mostly for singing kirtan, which is like a yogi sing song back and forth. It's an interesting practice.
Nice. Nice. Let's say you have to go on a road trip from South Carolina to Seattle, and you have to bring 3 people with you. Who are they? And they cannot be family members.
They would be really probably the yogis that are here teaching for me, 3 of them. There's a bunch of them, but recently, even, every couple years, teachers come, teachers go, all of those things, and everybody's great. But the crew that I have now is special. They are devoted students. They don't just want to teach. They teach because they almost have to, because they are such good students. And I've never really had a full house of devoted students before. So a couple of them, and they're balanced yogis. They're not just all one way. They can still get down. They can still take a shot. They are balanced. They can live in this world and make it better, not just, go far to the other side.
Like you, that fits to what you were saying before about still
Absolutely.
liking your bags and shopping and wine and whatnot.
That's right.
What are 3 words that your best friend would use to describe you?
I would say energetic rather than bossy, but those probably come together. And I would say probably something like busy and probably kind.
If I asked that best friend to fill in the following sentence, what would he or she say? Dawn is the greatest, but I wish she were a little less blank.
Oh, shit. Dawn is the greatest business owner, but I wish she were a little less anal about everything.
What's the worst job you've ever had? Or have you never had one because you've always been in your yoga practice?
I did have a job that I really didn't like. I was a dishwasher at a bar, And I'm only 5 foot now. I think I was 4 foot. And it wasn't just like a little dishwasher. It was those big like things, and you had to slide them and bring the thing down. And
Yeah, I know how it works.
it was bad. It was bad. And then one day I just left and I never came back. I was like, you can even keep those 2 days of pay. I can't do it.
How old were you?
I was driving, but I think I was just driving. So I think I just turned 16.
Right. Just about the time you got a moon tattoo.
Yeah. Well, I was sitting on a phone book to drive.
If you had to live outside of North America permanently, where would you choose?
I really liked Amsterdam. So I haven't been tons and tons of places, but Amsterdam is amazing. It's just a really good time. And I've lived at the beach for 20 years accidentally. I don't like the heat. So it was just cooler, and I really love the city. I really like city, and I like history, and I like really good food and theater and art and those things. So anywhere a little older and more, it sounds depressing, a little more gray, that kind of thing. That's what I'm looking for.
Amsterdam is an amazing, amazing city.
Yeah.
And not too gray. When I think of gray, I think more Prague and Budapest and that area. I love Amsterdam.
Me too.
What are you curious about?
I'm really curious about people. So, and it ranges from people in the U.S. just living their everyday lives, their fears, their desires, their difficulties, and then other cultures and the way they behave as a society. So people fascinate me because we're all more similar than different. It doesn't matter who you pick up from one country, one gender, one age. We all move away from things that feel bad, and we run towards shit that feels good. Those are the things we do, is we don't want to suffer and we want to feel great. So problems are just topics, and all of us are really doing the same work. So it's like we all have a spirit within human form, and wherever we're at, our experiences are really why we have the personality we have. You know, the spirit's whole, perfect, and complete, and then we have all these difficulties, and we get specific personalities that have specific issues. But really, we're all doing the same work. We're just trying to go back to neutral, back to where we were.
How are you doing with that? You back to neutral?
I'm doing okay. I'm not very linear.
Right.
I go here and then there. And sometimes what I thought was down was really up. And, I'm going to look at the big picture later.
Reassess.
Yeah.
If you could have any musical artist perform at your next birthday party, who would it be?
It would probably be Jimi Hendrix. I've just loved him since I was a kid. I love really all kind of rock and roll from the 60s and 70s. I'm a big, big fan. So he'd probably be the ultimate. Plus like clothing and the way, I'd be all into his outfit. I'm into that.
If a 40-year-old was coming to visit Myrtle Beach for the first time for only one day or night, where would you take them?
I would, depending on their personality, because I can go a few ways in Myrtle Beach. You can like do it up, or you can, stay a little more classy. So what I might do, I really love this German-Austrian restaurant here. It's been here 20 years, and it's authentic German-Austrian. The accordion. It's a good time. I would take them there for their beer flights and food, and then we might hit up some more fun venues.
And fun venues are what? Bars, clubs? Is that a thing down there?
Bars, clubs. I love playing pool. There's, we have good clubs here. That's what people do here. They play golf, they drink. The beach is nice, but I don't like the sand or the heat. So I can't do that.
Yet you live on the beach for 20 years and shut off your air conditioning in the summertime.
I don't know what happened. I'm suffering.
What is a great compliment that you have received that has stuck with you?
My neighbor once, and didn't tell me, told my husband, so indirectly, but he said, your wife, she's the only real entrepreneur I know. She really built something just from nothing. She doesn't even have any products. And I was like, That's a good thing because I feel like wherever I go, I have a business. Wherever I'm at, if somebody will listen to me talk, I have something I can do. And that's a good feeling for me.
Well, you're right. You're an established authority figure on what you do, and that can relate anywhere.
Yeah, there's so many angles for that.
For sure. What is something that all 40-year-olds should go and do or try ASAP? A call to action for
Yeah,
the
you gotta
for our
get out of
peers.
your bubble, like immediately. Like the world that you think exists is your own projection of it. Like you have to get out of your own stuff, out of the country, out of your issues. That person that drops into your mind every day that you're not talking to, you have to cut that cord. That has to go. So you have to do things bigger than yourself, bigger than your worries.
If you could work for any person in the world, who would it be, and what job would you want?
I would want to work for this Swami. So his name is Radhanath Swami, and I've been trying to see him for maybe 2 years. And every time he's anywhere, even close, like Europe or in the US, I always have a contract to be somewhere else. And so usually I make things happen when I really want to do something. And he's just out of my grasp. He keeps slipping away from me. So I would do anything at all. I just want to spend some time.
How would you see him when he's in Europe? Like he holds events, and then you
Yeah.
can just buy a ticket essentially.
Yeah, you just go to the city and you buy. He just does lectures. He's a Hare Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
He's like one of the heads of the Hare Krishna temple. But he's from Chicago and he grew up Jewish. And he has this awesome book, The Journey Home, about his travels to India. And crazy shit happened. Like that story is amazing. And it's the same place I go in India. So it's kind of interesting because I'm reading about him at the places I'm at.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. One day I'll get close.
You'll get there.
Maybe.
Now that you have experience as a parent, what is something that your parents did really well when you were younger?
My parents gave me a lot of freedom, but also a lot of responsibility. And that was really good. They didn't give me too much responsibility and no freedom. My responsibilities reflected the amount of freedom I had. So that was really, really good. They never, they would swear in front of me. They would live their life. And that meant that I was a child and I don't get to do that. Like there was a distinction. And sometimes I see the opposite now. And I'm always like, they know those words exist. Just tell them no.
When your kids turn 40, how many kids do you have?
2.
How old?
17 and 15.
When they turn 40, how do you want them to finish the sentence? The most important thing my mom taught me was blank.
Gosh. Ooh, I've never thought about that in my life. I hope that they say something along the lines of to be of service to people, to be kind, to be loving. That the life is really about the journey, not the destination. So I try really hard to teach them that like the everyday moments are the important moments, not the ones we write down. Those may come, they may not be as we planned, but in the every single little day moments, those are where you live your life.
If you were hosting this podcast, what is a question that you would want to ask other 40-year-olds?
One question that I think it's a good time in our life to let go of or to talk about is what is the story that we want to let go of that no longer serves us? Because what happens is when we grow up, we put on hats that were given to us by our community, by our family, by our culture, and we still wear those for a very long time. So to be self-aware means that you no longer take responsibility for the hats that you didn't give yourself.
What is the story that you would like to get rid of at this point in life?
I think the one that I'm working on is that I deserve the things that I get or that I'm doing or that I've done, that I don't have to shrink to make other people feel better.
How's that going?
Yeah, it's getting better though. It is.
Good. Day by day.
Day by day.
We've reached the last question here. Flew through this thing.
Yeah.
You selected a song to play us out of here. Why? What song did you choose and why? And I'm I'm very interested to hear this answer.
It's Ghetto Bird. I just love it. I love
By who?
I think
Who's the artist?
my feel. It's Ice Cube, right?
Yeah.
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 It represents my feel. That's what you hear when I pull up. I don't know. I love people. I love the duality between good and bad, between what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to. I love the balance between somebody living a spiritual life, but also growing up in a different kind of place and not being embarrassed about your experience. That's where we have power, is when we've been through shit and we come on the other side and we can talk about it and we're no longer embarrassed about the experiences we didn't have power over.
Awesome. Ghetto Bird by Ice Cube coming your way, everyone. Dawn, thank you very much. This was awesome.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thank you. I had a great time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next time on Pass the 40.